Hello and welcome to our analysis of iCAT23. Now with just 3 mocks left, that's 23 to 25, you need to be very clear as to where you stand in terms of your preparation, your attempts, accuracy and your strengths and weaknesses. iCATs 23 to 25 are now designed to also give you an experience of small variations in CAT that might happen and to expose you to different difficulty levels in each section so that you're prepared for all eventualities. So, starting with the overall difficulty level of iCAT 23, it was a moderately difficult mock with an average LOD of close to 2. The LOD of a question or a section or a mock is the difficulty level on an average, because we assign a question an LOD of 1 to 3 based on easy to tough. Now, as we said, this was a moderately tough mock. In general, if I look at the overall difficulty, it was at par with CAT. Starting with the verbal section, verbal was easier here compared to CAT with an average LOD of 1.75 mostly. So this would have been slightly easier compared to CAT. What is the breakup? Here, to give you a new experience, we still had 24 RC questions, but we broke away from the 6 or the 4-2 combination, that is 2 passages of 6 questions and 4 of 3 combination. This time there were 3 passages of 6 questions and only 2 passages of 3 questions, so there were only 5 RCs in all. This partially made your life easier because you had less reading to do. Of course, all the 6 question RCs were correspondingly longer. The reason this section was easier was that 4 of these 5 RCs were easy to moderate, whereas only 1 RC, the very first one, was the toughest, and that too it was moderate to tough. So here there were a lot of attempts available to you in terms of the RCs. What were the kind of topics that you had? So the first RC that you had was on reading, which was the toughest of the lot. This could have been easily skipped. Here the issue is that students would possibly have started with this saying that it's the first question. So this is where you need to learn that don't always go by the sequence. Look at all the RCs first, then take a call. And I'll emphasize this point again in the next 2 minutes. The next RC was again on literature, European literature, could have been skipped. Both of these were the shorter 3 question RCs. Eventually, the next 3 RCs, which were the longer 6 question RCs, were the easier topics to read. So you had one on European refugees, the current crisis, one on addiction to the internet, and the last one was on Paytm, which is the wallet. So you had 3 very easy to read topics at the end with 6 questions in each, and with the RCs being easy to moderate. So as a student, your focus should have been these 3 RCs, which would have straight away given you access to 18 questions. Even if you would have skipped 1 or 2 questions here and there because they were tough, you would have still got 16 questions in your bag right away at the beginning of the paper. So my RCs to attempt for this mock would have been the ones on Paytm, addiction to internet and the European refugees. Then in terms of the numerical entry questions or the TETA questions, we had the same breakup as always: para summary, para jumbles, contextual odd man out. The good news for you again was that there were no real tough questions except the one-off tougher question in one of these question types. But if you see, among these 3, contextual odd man out was the easiest, whereas the other 2 were moderate. So I would have tried and attempted 4 to 5 questions here easily. In general, if I look at this section, I would have been able to attempt anywhere around 16 to 17 questions in the RCs and 4 to 5 very serious attempts in the non-RCs. 21 attempts would have been an extremely nice performance as far as verbal is concerned. Let's now look at DILR. So, whatever advantages we got due to an easier verbal section were all washed away due to a much tougher DILR section. Just to give you a perspective, In CAT, the average LOD of the DILR section is 2.2 to 2.25. This particular mock had a difficulty closer to 2.4. So this you can imagine how tougher it became. We generally tell people to attempt 16 to 20 questions. Here you could have been happier with less than that. But for that you needed to identify the top 2 or 3 sets that you had to attempt. And these were the ones that you should have focused on. So there was one on a single table based on a cricket tournament. This should definitely have been done. Then there was one on multiple pies where one was on 2 question marks and 4 question marks. Had you understood the concept behind it and used linear equations correctly, this is something that should have been again attempted. It would have given you full marks. And then there was one standard Venn diagram based question on 3 professions. So this should have been attempted. In a very tough section, these were the 3 easiest sets. And all 3 of them would have been attempted in full, giving you 12 attempts right away. So then how would you have gone for the 4th and 5th set? There were 2 other sets. One was on 5 friends in 5 different rooms. Again, this was a slightly tricky set, so may or may not have been attempted. And then there was an easy set based on a triangle graph where the marks of students in 3 subjects were given. Physics, chemistry and maths, if I'm not wrong, but they were on 3 different axes. So the only issue in that set was how do you read. If you were able to read that set properly, then it was there for the taking. The remaining 3 sets were so tough that you should not have touched them. So now you might ask me as to why is this section classified as so tough if you're talking about 5 doable sets. The reason is that it was split nearly equally between very easily solvable sets and completely unsolvable sets. So had you gone on to the unsolvable ones, you would have not only lost time but also attempts. Had you selected these, then yes, 16 questions was a possible scenario as far as this mock is concerned. So yes, it was a tough section, but even in this tough section, 16 attempts was possible and would have been a very good performance. Finally, let's move on to Quant. Generally the easiest section for the whole mock, here again easiest, but purely looking at it compared to CAT, it was slightly tougher compared to CAT. So here we had a tougher DILR and a slightly tougher Quant to counterbalance an easy verbal. The average difficulty here was close to 1.85, which would have brought down my number of attempts marginally. Generally we are able to identify some 12-13 questions. Here again we have been able to identify 13 questions that you should have attempted. Now what does this mean? In some of the earlier mocks where we've said it was easy, we've identified only 11 must attempt questions or 10 must attempt questions. And here in a mock where we are saying it's slightly tougher than normal, we have identified 13. What does that imply? In the earlier case, even though the whole section is easy, if there are only 10 must attempt questions, it means that the others are only moderate really. So the overall LOD does not go up too much, but there are a lot of moderate questions. So that is not bad news. The bad news is in this mock, because if the overall difficulty level is higher and there are 13 easy questions, it means that the others have to be correspondingly much tougher. So again, this goes to the same philosophy of the DILR section, that if you find the right questions, you'll score a lot of marks. If you go for the wrong questions, you'll end up losing a lot of time and potentially a lot of marks. So this is something you need to keep in mind. So which were these questions? Like I keep telling people, there was this huge chunk between questions 69 to 78. So in this set you had some 6 out of 10 being easy. Again from 80 to 90 there were 5 to 6 questions, and then a few scattered questions here and there. So look out for these chunks. In terms of the overall breakup of the entire section, if I look at arithmetic, I can identify 5 out of 13 as being from arithmetic, 4 from algebra and the remaining 4 from geometry and modern math. So if nearly 9 out of 13, so around 70% of the questions are from arithmetic and algebra, it means that geometry and modern math are on the tougher side here, while these two are on the easier side. So if you're banking on say geometry or modern math, you would struggle in this paper, possibly. So try and keep an equal balance among all 4 parts to ensure that you maximize your scores. This particular section, apart from these 13, there were 2-3 other questions which were doable. So 16 attempts would be a good performance as far as this section is concerned. On the whole, if I were to say, this was a moderate mock characterized by an easy verbal section, super tough DILR section and marginally tougher. So broadly moderate quant section. The overall good attempts here would be somewhere between 52 and 54, with a sectional breakup being close to 21, 16 and 16. Wish you all the very best. Prepare well for the last 2 mocks that you have and for CAT. Hope to see you take all 25 mocks, analyze them thoroughly so as to increase your chances of maximizing your score. You can subscribe to our channel for more videos of this type. Thank you and wish you all the very best.